All right, let's dive right into this explainer. We're about to take a journey through the absolute cosmos of America's greatest poetic masterpiece. We're looking at a work that is, quite literally, medicinal for the soul. Seriously, if you've ever felt completely bogged down by the anxieties of the daily grind, the poetry of Walt Whitman, and specifically his epic, Song of Myself, acts as this incredibly powerful antidote. It reaches right out, takes you by the hand, and practically demands that you embrace life.
We kick things off with a direct address from the poet himself, unapologetically planting his own identity right at the dead center of his universe. I celebrate myself and sing myself. I mean, these iconic opening words from the very first stanza instantly create this incredibly intimate bond between Whitman and you, the reader. He isn't holding back, and he certainly isn't hiding behind stiff, formal conventions. He is stepping right up to the microphone of history.
But you've got to wonder, how did these seemingly simple, beautiful words actually cost Whitman his job and cause his book to be banned in libraries all across 19th century America? When readers first stumbled onto this in 1855, it caused an absolute scandal. Whitman was literally fired from his federal government job because his poetry was deemed completely disreputable. To understand why, we really need to look at how he totally dismantled the literary and cultural rules of his day.
Part 1. The Epic of the Self.
Think about traditional grand narrative poems for a second. Your Homers, your Miltons. They usually began by invoking a divine muse to sing about these massive, lofty themes of war, or gods, or man's first disobedience. But Whitman, he completely shocked readers by making the everyday, individual human being the heroic subject of his epic. To 19th century sensibilities, making the personal pronoun I, the hero, was seen as incredibly arrogant and self-absorbed. But for Whitman, you are your own greatest quest.
Drawing heavily from the cadence of the King James Bible and borrowing that improvisational call-and-response style from Quaker sermons, he furiously evolved his masterpiece over time. His absolute most visionary decade was from 1855 to 1865, but he continuously revised and tweaked this work right up until the famous Deathbed edition in 1892. Over all those decades, he refined that rushing, gushing, free verse rhythm to become the undeniable voice of a nation.
Part 2. Breaking the Puritan Rules. Whitman literally waged war against the strict Puritan work ethic of his era. He famously wrote, "I loaf and invite my soul, observing a spear of summer grass." Now, at the time, Whitman was working as a journalist, and his co-workers constantly complained about how incredibly slow he moved. Loafer was actually a really derogatory slang term for a lazy person back then. But Whitman, he flips it. He transforms that insult into a badge of honor. To him, loafing was this calm, steady, heroic protest against the mindless, churning grind of industrialization. He's begging us to just stop, slow down, and actually observe the miraculous world right in front of us.
And as he's out there inviting his soul to just loaf, he breaks down his own psyche into 3 internal parts. He noticed how we are constantly bombarded, right, by the news, sickness, money problems, all those daily anxieties. But he refuses to identify his true inner self with those fleeting concerns. He purposefully separates his public persona from his deeper me, myself, and his eternal soul. He realizes that our real identity isn't tangled up in our daily stress, but sits somewhere deeper, at the bottom of our breath, entirely connected to nature.
So instead of tearing his hair out, trying to neatly unite all these messy, complex pieces of his identity, he just confidently embraces his inner fragmentation with this legendary assertion, "I am large, I contain multitudes." We all feel that heavy pressure to be perfectly consistent, to fit into one neat little box. Whitman totally liberates us from that. He tells us, hey, it is perfectly fine to be complex, to change your mind, and to hold a vast, sometimes contradictory universe right inside yourself.
Part 3. The Sacred Human Body.
This right here is a massive reason his work was heavily censored. He completely, entirely rejects religious guilt surrounding the flesh. In his poetry, he essentially performs a reverse Garden of Eden. He wants to strip away those metaphorical fig leaves of shame that our primal parents put on. He insists that the body and soul are completely intertwined, writing that not an inch nor a particle of an inch is vile. To Whitman, our physical senses, touching, tasting, seeing, they aren't base or sinful at all. They are literally miraculous, spiritual experiences that bring us intimately closer to the divine.
Part 4. Radical Empathy and Equality.
By fiercely loving himself and his own physical form, Whitman basically unlocked this sweeping, radical empathy for all of humanity. Using a poetic technique called cataloging, he visually overwhelms us with the vast, chaotic panorama of human life. He builds these massive, rhythmic lists that pull absolutely everyone into his epic. And he's not just singing for the wealthy or the victorious.
No, he channels the voices of the marginalized, the sick, the overcome heroes, and the slain. He plays his loudest, most joyful music for those who have failed, insisting that every single person is worthy of being the hero of an epic poem.
In a deeply, deeply divided America, he actually went to slave auctions in New Orleans and was just profoundly disturbed by what he saw. He penned these fiercely anti-slavery lines, acting almost Christ-like in his poetry by welcoming fugitive slaves, washing their bruised feet, and recognizing the exact same divine spark in every single person. He forces the reader to look straight at the auction block and realize that the exact same red-running blood, the same passions, and the same immortal soul exist within all of us, completely regardless of race.
Part 5. The meaning of the grass.
This brings us to the core, life-affirming metaphor of the whole shebang. His famous title, Leaves of Grass, is incredibly, wonderfully ambiguous. Back in the 19th century, printers actually referred to bundles of paper as leaves, so the title beautifully layers nature's literal foliage, the physical pages of his printed poetry, and the biblical concept of human flesh being like grass, all into one profound idea. Every poem, every page, every blade of grass, and every human being is fundamentally linked together.
Later in the poem, a child comes up to him and asks this wonderfully impossible question, "What is the grass?" And Whitman actually pauses to ponder the absolute greatest mysteries of existence and our tiny place within it. He freely admits he doesn't know what it is any more than the kid does. But then he starts to guess, and his guesses start to unravel the very fabric of life and death itself.
Unlike, say, Shakespeare's Hamlet, who totally agonized over great men turning into common dust, Whitman views our return to the dirt as this deeply comforting, continuous cycle of cosmic rebirth. He calls the grass the beautiful, uncut hair of graves. It tells us that nothing truly collapses. To die is actually different from what anyone supposed, and in Whitman's eyes, it's far luckier. We are all eventually folded back into the dirt only to spring right back up again as new, everlasting life. The whole structure of his masterpiece really mirrors this cosmic cycle. Notice how he begins the poem with the word I, fiercely establishing his own ego and identity. But he concludes it with the word you. He completely shatters the fourth wall, reaching across centuries to speak directly into your life today. He tells us that his thoughts aren't uniquely his own. If they aren't your thoughts too, they are nothing. He wants you to realize that his epic journey, it's actually your epic journey.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with his parting promise. It's Whitman flashing forward to his own death, speaking to us from the earth itself. I bequeath myself to the dirt, to grow from the grass I love. He promises that he will literally be waiting for us, filtering and fibering our blood. So, my final question to you is, will you take a moment to just slow down, look under your own boot soles today, and discover your very own eternal connection to this incredibly powerful play of life?